Have you ever imagined yourself sitting at the family dinner table where everyone talks about the new cars they bought and the trips they took, and you sit off to the side, ashamed? Well, Tiago has been through that. And the truth is that if your pocket is empty, the world pretends you don't exist, and you feel ashamed. Today I'm going to show you, with Tiago's story, how your lack of money gave people permission to step on and humiliate you, and how to overcome poverty. Tiago's story began to fall apart on an ordinary Sunday at his parents' house. He was always the nice guy, the one who helped everyone and had a heart of gold, but who never had a single real left over. That day, he realized that the family's love was still there, but the respect had been gone for a long time. When he said something serious, people gave that little pity smile, like someone looking at an injured puppy on the street. He was no longer the man of the house. He was just little Tiago, the raw, eternal, unemployed guy everyone tried to avoid so they wouldn't have to hear a request for a loan. That lack of money became a mark he carried on his face, in his simple clothes, and in the way he walked slightly hunched over. Tiago would walk into a store and see that the salespeople didn't even bother to say good morning when they looked at his shoes. The world seems to have a radar for who is broke, and people treat the poor with a haste that hurts the soul. He saw people much worse than him, rude and ill-mannered, being treated like kings just because they had a black credit card in their wallet. His character meant nothing when it came to getting a good table at a restaurant or real attention. The worst blow came when he heard his own wife defending him in a conversation with her friends, but with a voice that sounded like she was making excuses. She said he had a lot of potential, but her look showed that she no longer believed in that lie they told each other. Tiago felt a shame that burned inside, realizing that even the person he loved most was losing admiration for him. He was no longer anyone's hero. He was just a burden people carried out of obligation and habit. It was there, in that humiliating silence, that he realized he needed to change, or he would be buried alive by his own poverty. The gurus Tiago watched on his phone said that being a good person was the secret to everything going right in life. He believed that if he kept being honest and helpful, the universe would one day knock on his door with a briefcase full of money. But real life doesn't work like a happy ending movie, and Tiago began to see that his kindness was being used as a doormat. He was the first to be called to help with other people's moves, but the last to be invited to the housewarming party. He realized that without money, his kindness was seen by others only as a lack of options and weakness of character. Tiago saw people who were not nice at all, who stepped on others, but were treated with the greatest respect in the world because they were successful. He began to understand that respect is not a prize for those who are nice, but an achievement for those who create value and have power. The world doesn't care if you are a saint, if you can't even pay your own rent on time. This discovery was like a punch in the stomach because he realized he had spent years being the nice friend while others grew and left him behind. The voice of scarcity in his head said it was wrong to want money, but his empty stomach and his shame said otherwise. The turning point came when he went to ask an old boss for advice and heard what no one had the courage to say. The man looked him in the eyes and said that no one listens to advice from someone who is losing the game of life. Tiago understood that his words were empty because he had no results to show as proof of what he said. He felt that his dignity was hanging by a thread, depending on people's willingness to be polite to him. He no longer wanted to be the guy everyone understands and helps. He wanted to be the man everyone respects and admires. But for that, he would have to face his greatest fear, admitting that his poverty was his own choice. Tiago got home and sat on the old couch, staring at the ceiling. He was tired of being the guy everyone helped with a plate of food or used clothes. He realized that every time someone came to help, they were actually reinforcing that he couldn't take care of himself. It was as if he were a grown child who needed permission for everything. He saw that his lack of money wasn't just a problem in his bank account, it was a hole in his courage. He accepted being treated any way at all because he thought that since he was poor, he couldn't demand anything from anyone. That night, he looked at his own reflection in the mirror and didn't like what he saw. He saw a man who made excuses for everything. The government is bad. My boss doesn't notice me. I wasn't lucky. He understood that as long as he lived on excuses, he would live on crumbs. Respect wasn't going to fall from the sky just because he was a good person. He understood that he needed to be useful, needed to do something people would want to buy. The world doesn't respect you for what you are, but for what you do and what you solve. He grabbed a piece of paper and a pen and wrote, "I will never again let anyone feel sorry for me." Pity is the worst feeling someone can have for a man because it kills admiration. He decided that from that moment on, he would work so hard on his mind and his wallet that the next time he sat at that family table, no one would dare cut him off. He didn't want to be the center of attention because of noise, but because of the value he was now determined to create. The journey would be difficult, but the smell of freedom was better than the taste of humiliation. After that night when he cried and decided to change, Tiago woke up different. He didn't run out to ask for help or look for some odd job like he always did. Instead of desperately chasing any spare change to pay for lunch, he sat down and began to plan his future. He understood that if he kept doing the same things, he would keep getting the same empty results. He realized that the secret wasn't working more hours like a convict, but working the right way on something that truly made a profit. So he started looking around and seeing what people really needed. He stopped seeing himself as a poor guy and started seeing himself as someone who could solve problems. He saw that while he spent time complaining about life with friends at the bar, the guys who were growing were studying or working in silence. He decided that his time was now sacred. He stopped making idle conversation and started learning a new skill, something people were willing to pay well to have. It was hard at first because everyone found it strange that the nice little Tiago now said no to everyone. He stopped being the guy who was always free to do favors for free. Many people drifted away, but he didn't care. He understood that the respect of those who use you for their own interest is worth nothing. He was focused on building his own ladder to climb out of the hole. He knew that for the world to start respecting him, he first needed to respect his own time and effort. Tiago looked at the neighborhood where he lived and realized that many people wanted to renovate their houses or fix basic things, but couldn't find anyone trustworthy who did clean work on time. Instead of being just another cheap handyman who charged very little and disappeared, he decided to start a small professional repair company. He used what little he had to buy good tools and created a simple but clean uniform. He stopped selling only his sweat and started selling trust and solutions. He arrived on time, explained what he was going to do, and delivered a perfect service. In a short time, his name began to spread by word of mouth as the best in the area. Tiago's schedule, which used to be empty, was now booked for weeks. He understood that when you solve a person's pain, like a leak no one could find or dangerous wiring, that person pays you with a smile and with the money you deserve. He stopped earning small change and started seeing 100 real bills actually coming in. For the first time in his life, he didn't have to choose between paying the electricity bill or buying meat. His business grew so much that he had to hire 2 assistants, those same friends who used to call him to the bar, but who now worked for him. The most incredible thing was seeing how people changed the way they spoke to him. The rich cousin, who used to cut him off mid-sentence, now called asking for a quote and asking how he had managed to grow so much in such a short time. Tiago realized that the world respects those who build something solid. He was no longer poor little Tiaguinho. He was Tiago from the renovation company, the man who solved other people's problems. The money coming in was proof that he had value. He saw that respect didn't come by miracle, but because he finally had something real to offer the world. With the success of his renovation company, Tiago was invited to another one of those family dinners. But this time, everything was different. He didn't arrive hunched over and afraid they would ask how work was going. He arrived with his head held high, not out of arrogance, but because he knew how hard he had worked to get there. When he sat at the table, the atmosphere changed. No one interrupted him anymore. On the contrary, the same people who used to ignore him now fell silent to hear what he had to say about business and how he was managing to grow so much. Tiago realized something that internet gurus try to hide. People don't respect you just because you are nice. They respect you for what you have achieved. He saw that his rich cousin now treated him as an equal, asking his opinion about investments and partnerships. The money in Tiago's pocket had given him a seat at that table that kindness alone never did. He understood that in the adult world, success is the best business card a man can have. His voice now had weight because it came with real results, not empty promises. But what moved Tiago the most was realizing that he no longer needed anyone's approval. He discovered that when you have your own independence, you don't need to beg for attention. He looked around and saw that many people there still lived on appearances, while he had built something real with his own hands. He felt a peace he had never felt before, the peace of knowing that if everything went wrong tomorrow, he had already learned the path to rebuild it all again. Tiago's greatest victory was not the new car in the garage or the full bank account, but the certainty that he would never again be invisible. He understood that money didn't change who he was inside, but it changed the way the world had permission to treat him. Now, he could provide for his wife and his parents the comfort they had always deserved, without having to ask permission or favors from anyone. He became the pillar of the family, the man everyone looks for when they need a real solution, and not just a shoulder to cry on. Poverty was a turned page, a memory of a time when he still didn't know his own strength. He looked back and felt compassion for the Tiago of the past, the one who believed life was unfair and that success was only for others. He realized that his previous kindness was actually a disguised fear of facing life head-on. Today, being a prosperous man, he could be much kinder and more generous than when he was poor, because now he had real resources to help those who truly needed it. Tiago discovered that the best way to help the poor is by not being one of them. He had broken the cycle of scarcity and started a new legacy of abundance for his future children. This story is proof that you don't have to accept being the poor little thing of your family or your circle of friends forever. The world can be cruel and ignore those who have nothing, but it also bows to those who decide to build their own success. You can keep complaining that no one values you, or you can start building the value that will force people to respect you. Money is the tool that gives volume to your voice and protects your dignity from the will of others. How long will you accept being the ghost at the dinner table? Time is passing, and with each day you don't act, your voice gets lower and your exhaustion increases. Getting rich is not just about buying expensive things. It's about never again having to bow your head to anyone for lack of options. If you want your reality to change, you need to change what you do with your time starting today. Stop looking for the perfect excuse and start looking for the solution the market is waiting for. If you have decided that starting today your story will be different and that you will fight for the respect you deserve, write in the comments, "I will build my value." Don't leave for tomorrow the decision to save your future and your family's honor. Subscribe to the channel to keep receiving this reality check that will take you to the next level. Remember, the world owes you nothing, but it gives you everything if you have the courage to be the owner of the game. See you in the next video, where respect is the only rule.